everything about her is remarkable. So we're grateful and excited that she could join us today. I'm just gonna give maybe another minute. We're just now starting to let people in. We had a couple of technical glitches, so I'll give another minute or so, and I'll open us up in a quick word of prayer, and then I'll turn over to Matt, our COO, who will give a few brief organizational updates, and then we'll dive in for some time with our guest this morning. So hope you all are doing quite well, even in the midst of all the chaos that's going on with, COVID-19 and the race crisis and all of the things that are really troubling our country right now. But obviously, those of us who are on this platform know that Christ is still at the center of who we are and what we do. And so let's make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize and that each of us represent the leadership necessary at our homes, in our communities. When we're out, we want to be that example for the world around us to follow us. We want to be models for those who we come in proximity with. So again, people are still signing on. I see the numbers slowly starting to tick up. And so what I'm going to do now is just open up for a brief word of prayer. And again, after me, the next voice you hear will be that of our Chief Operating Officer, Matt Killian, my great friend and brother, and one of our internal rock stars for our organization. So let's pray. You'll hear from Matt, and then I'll take the time to introduce our guest this morning. Without further ado, here we go. Father, we thank you for this amazing day and this amazing platform. Thank you for the gifts and the talents of the speakers we've had previously, and for Candace this morning, who, wow, what an incredible story, how accomplished she is, even in the midst of all the adversity that she and her family has had to overcome. I'm just incredibly grateful to call her a friend, and really honestly to have had the privilege to meet her during this lifetime. And so I can't wait for her to share words of wisdom with our community here. Thank you for those that are joining us this morning. They obviously signed on looking for some encouragement, looking for some inspiration, looking for ways to take this combination of work and faith to the next level. And so we're grateful that you've shared, Candace with us this morning. So Father, bless our time together, that it will be fruitful and productive and honoring in your sight. And it's in the mighty and matchless name of our awesome Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that we do humbly pray. Hallelujah and amen. Matt, the floor is yours, brother.
Thank you, Anthony. Much appreciated. So, Candace, we are honored that you are joining us this morning. Thank you so much. I also want to join Anthony in saying and expressing my sincerest appreciation for everyone in the audience. We truly welcome y'all. As many of you know, that in March, when COVID-19 hit the United States, it rendered most businesses, or a lot of businesses, inoperable, and spurred on a massive spike in layoffs and furloughs. WorkFaith, as a matter of fact, was part of that inoperable group due to the fact that all of our program services were offered in person, either in the classroom or in a one-on-one setting. As an organization, we knew that a pivot was necessary to become operational and meet the demands for the record number of unemployed individuals. So after carefully planning and design implementation, we launched our entire program and every service that we offer online. This includes our training workshop, career and life coaching, our placement services, resume writing, financial classes, and an additional 10 other supplemental courses developed to help people sustain and advance in their jobs once they're employed. As you might imagine, the transition was not perfect, but through the perseverance and dedication of our really solution-oriented staff, the virtual model has become an amazing success. The results from May, June, and July are as follows. So we've graduated 126 people. 80% of those are actively engaged in the career and life coaching services. We've been a part of 100 or more job referrals to open positions from core employers through our placement services. We had 16 graduates, 16 graduate from our financial class. It's a 4-week class. And we currently have more than 40 people enrolled for the next class. That starts September 1. Plus, there's many more enrolled and participating in our resume writing, mock interviews, and supplemental courses. This has resulted in over 2,000 workforce development hours. So amazing training has taken place, and we're just really proud of our team that has conducted all of this training and workforce development. August has proven to be a really pivotal month for us. We are seeing and are slated to train more than 120 people due to new partnerships and optimized factors within our operations. To put that in perspective, this number is as many and possibly more than May, June, and July combined. A big reason for that is that we have currently partnered with Gallery Furniture. Gallery Furniture has launched a new venture called Work Texas. Work Texas is a high school and trade school that is geared towards the younger demographic. So it's 14 to 18-year-old high schoolers, and then 19 to 26-year-old adults who want to go back and get their diploma from high school. So our focus is on the 19 to 26-year-olds. They're gonna go in there. They're gonna finish up their high school diploma and also learn a trade in the process. So they're offering 8 different trade aspects, and in order to enroll in that high school, they have to come through WorkFaith Connection first. So we're very integrated into their system, and that has resulted in 60 plus people coming into this class starting on August 17th. So we're excited to welcome in that influx of individuals who will eventually become employed after their time at the Gallery Furniture or Work Texas. And it's going to stretch our organization in a lot of positive ways. So the foresight, development, and quick implementation of the virtual model really put WorkFaith in front of other workforce development organizations, not just in Houston, but nationwide. We've kind of set the stage and are an example for organizations to follow if and when they can. In light of this, we've actually discovered some new opportunities outside of Houston. And that's going to allow us to partner with organizations that do work like us that don't have a virtual program and cannot train their clientele. So they're going to actually enroll into our virtual training and participate through WorkFaith, and we're going to train the individuals, and then they'll disperse out into their cities in which they reside. So we're really looking forward to that. It's going to be a great opportunity for us. And so yeah, we're looking forward to that. In our industry, this particular time is called the event season, and COVID-19 is not slowing us down. As a matter of fact, we've actually added an additional event to this time frame of the year for us. Besides our annual By Faith event or experience, we are going to host a event called I Work Houston. This event was designed to fill the gap between companies that are hiring and the people that are seeking employment. The bridge, to help bridge that gap, WorkFaith, Gallery Furniture, and Houston First Baptist teamed up to host this unique event, this virtual hiring experience designed to connect Houstonians with employers, free resources, and so much more. So participants will interview with hiring managers on the spot, receive tips from career experts, and engage in job readiness workshops such as the value of career management, hosted by a LinkedIn associate, nailing virtual interviews, resume writing workshops, branding yourself techniques, and a whole lot more. The event will take place virtually, completely virtual, on August 25th. More information, or if you want more information, you can go to our website, workfaith.org. And so far, we've got 500 registered participants. I think more than that actually now, and over 50 committed employers ready to hire into over 600 open positions that they've indicated to us. Also on September 30th, we'll be having our annual By Faith experience. Save the dates, and invitations will be sent out soon, so I won't go into much detail about that. But stay tuned to learn about the all-star lineup for that morning and much, much more. With that, Anthony, I'll pass it back over to you and Candace. Thank you.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for those awesome organizational updates. He said a mouthful, you all. We're big on stats and data, so I know there was a lot to stomach, if you will, but Matt, thank you so much for sharing those stats. Our team has been working diligently, as you all can see, incredibly hard. Even in the midst of COVID-19, we're having some tremendous momentum, a lot of moving parts in our organization. So I'm grateful to Matt, you and the team. Hats off to everybody for the contributions you're making to continue to keep our organization moving forward. So I came in, you all, with a packing a heavy punch, really challenging the team in unique ways. And so I must say, tipping my hat off to the team. They've stepped up and just really soared in the midst of all that's going on. Well, without further ado, let me shut up because I'm incredibly excited to get my great friend Candace Matthews on this platform. Candace, wow, what an honor to have you here. Your schedule is bananas. I know COVID-19 has slowed you down a bit, but if people only knew how busy you were, how in demand you are, wow. So I really feel like it's an honor and a gift and a blessing to have you join us this morning. You all, I met Candace probably 5 or 6 years ago through actually one of the family members, whose family founded Amway, a global phenom organization. And obviously you all have heard of the DeVos family. And of course I met Candace through the Van Andel side. The DeVosses and the Van Andels were who founded Amway many years ago. But nonetheless, I've actually had interactions on both sides. So Candace, I've been blessed to have connections with the DeVos family as well as the Van Andels. So, I got the call and they said, we've got somebody to introduce you to. And I had no idea that you would blow me away the way you did upon meeting you. So really, I'm grateful. And I'm going to get out of the way. I mean, your professional accomplishments are, wow. Just everything from being an executive, a C-level executive at Coke to obviously being the president of a vertical of L'Oreal and of course, president of the Americas for Amway. You really, under your leadership, the company soared. I mean, billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars in revenue were created because of your leadership. So I want to make sure people understand, who you are as a businesswoman, but that doesn't even compare to who you are as a human being. And so that's an exceptional thought in my head to think, wow, like who you are as a human being far exceeds who you are as a business person. And you're an incredible business person. So we're grateful to have you. I'm going to let you tell a little bit more about your background because I think it's important that people understand that. I mean, you're serving on public boards for major corporations. I mean, it's just remarkable. So I'll let you share a little bit and then we'll get into your incredible family history.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. It is an honor, absolute honor to be here with you today. I serve a great God, and I have been abundantly blessed. And I thank you, Anthony, for the opportunity to share my story because it's a testimony to how good God has been in my life. Now, from my professional career, I went to college at Carnegie Mellon, and I became an engineer. And while I was there, I had an advisor who said, you should augment your engineering degree with an MBA. And if you're going to do it, make it count because MBAs will be a dime a dozen. And so go to the best school you possibly can. And so I ended up going to Stanford for my MBA and started my career from there in marketing. And so I've had the pleasure of working for many marketing moguls. I started at General Mills in Minneapolis, where my claim to fame there was putting Michael Jordan on the Wheaties box. And from there, I went to a company that was called Noxell that had Noxzema and CoverGirl. And while I was there, they were acquired by Procter & Gamble. So the first 10 years of my career were spent working for the biggest marketing giants that you could ever learn from. And it did an amazing job. So I had the pleasure at P&G to introduce shades of color in CoverGirl for the first time. And that was also something amazing that I had a chance to deliver. At that point, I was looking for a role in strategy, and I went to what was called Ciba Vision at the time, which while I was there was acquired by Novartis. And so I had a pleasure of working around the globe. I worked for a brilliant strategist who taught me so much about strategy. During my 3 years there, I traveled to 17 countries, became a student of world cultures, absolutely love the globe and what you learn from each other. So from there, I actually went to Coca-Cola through their general manager's talent initiative. And so they were hiring people in and training them to become general managers. And so after supporting one of the execs for a year, I stepped into my own exec role, which at that point was the new product and package innovation role. And what you see in the stores, known as the fridge pack now, where sodas and anything you drink are packed 2 by 6 so they fit in your refrigerator, was one of the innovations from my team. We actually had a 2-year exclusivity at Coke through that. And so I got to leave my mark at Coca-Cola. I loved Coke. I thought I was going to retire at Coke. But when I was in business school, I had set a goal for myself that I wanted to be a general manager or division president, by the time I was 50. I wanted to be running a division. And when I was 42, I got a call from a headhunter to go run a division of L'Oreal. And so I then ran the Sofshin Carson Ethnic Hair Care division of L'Oreal for 6 years. An amazing experience, built my financial acumen in ways that I could have never imagined. The downside was L'Oreal as a company is a pretty tough culture. And so when it was time for me to say, I need something that allows me to spend more time with my family, I then got a headhunter call for a job at Amway. And I literally said, do they still exist? And, when they said, yes, they're global. And I ended up coming to Amway as their global chief marketing officer. And I have been at Amway for the past almost 13 years. I spent 7 years as their global chief marketing officer, setting up their global brands and making them a global enterprise from a marketing standpoint. And then spent 5.5 years as the president of the Americas region, running the company from Canada to Argentina. And recently, at the beginning of last month, I stepped into full-time into my new role as chief reputation officer, and where I'm responsible for all of their sustainability efforts, their corporate social responsibility, the reputation, the Amway brand, and oversight to all of the diversity and inclusion. So that's my career. That's what 40 years in a nutshell.
Wow. Again, Candace, remarkable. I literally, and I'll say this publicly, as an African-American woman, you have really, in many ways, defied the odds when you look at the trajectory of your career, statistically defying the odds. And so I have such admiration and respect for you. And as I said, it was definitely no mistake that God allowed me to have the opportunity to connect with you through the families at Amway. So I'm incredibly grateful. I want to, your story, your family background is very, very, very unique. And I wanted you to share all those accomplishments because, a lot of times if people just saw you in person and they walked by you, they would have no idea about your family and your origin. So can you please, and take your time, I don't want people to miss some of these nuggets that you're going to share. Share us a little bit about your family background and family origin. It's remarkable.
Okay. So I am the youngest of 18 children. How we came, actually there were a few more that passed away, but I grew up with 18. My father was married. His first wife died. And there were 7 at the time, of which 2 died young. Then he married my mother. She had 13 more. And then my father passed away in 1969, and my mother raised this entire brood, what I like to call them. But my father was a minister. He was an AME minister, and my mother was a homemaker. And my father had an 8th grade education, and then ultimately got what was equivalent to a GED. Now, we had been told growing up that my father had to quit school because his father passed away when he was 13. As we've been able to find out more about our history, we found out some fascinating things about my grandfather. The first thing that we found out was that my grandfather was lynched in 1915. And then we started trying to dig and find out more about it. recently we learned that my grandfather, because my maiden name is Sheffield, we never understood why we had a British name.
Right, right.
So we learned that my grandfather had lived in the UK working for a family. So his mother was owned by the family there. He was learned how to build houses because the family that owned them were architects.
So owned as in slaves.
As in slaves.
I just want to be clear.
As in slaves were architects. They were granted their freedom. My grandfather actually came through Ellis Island and settled in the South and built a home for his family that was admired by many and desired by one of the white men of the town. And this is in Loudoun County, Georgia. Mm. They wanted his home. He would not give it to them, nor would he sell it to them. And so they made up a charge that he had stolen a piece of meat from the butcher. He was arrested, taken to jail. In the middle of the night, the jail was miraculously unlocked, and he was taken out and lynched.
Wow. So just to be clear, I want to make sure I heard that correctly. Your grandfather owned property, and because he refused to give it away or sell it, he was basically false charges, false accusations. He was locked up, and the next thing we know, he was lynched.
And he was lynched. Yes.
Wow. Wow.
You know, and we've been able to have this validated through the Equal Justice Initiative. And recently, 2 years ago, they opened a memorial in Alabama to those that they could document people who had been lynched. And I actually have a slide that shows the pillar with my grandfather's name from that museum in Alabama. And if you could put that on, there it is. So Caesar Sheffield is my grandfather.
Wow.
You can see he was lynched in 1915. And if you, let's see, scroll, it's probably on the picture on the right, about 15 names down, you see C. Sheffield. If you look very closely, it says
I see it.
Okay,
yeah,
you see it right there. Exactly. That's where it is.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's where he signed the document coming into Ellis Island.
Wow.
And this we literally just found out in the past 3 years that he had come through Ellis Island. And by the way, where it says courtesy of Dr. Crystal is my niece that got her PhD in African American Studies. And through her, we were able to find this out.
Remarkable. Remarkable. Hmm.
And so that is kind of the background that we had, and that explains why in my family, faith and education were the root of everything that they did for the children, because they believed that the only way their children could succeed was to educate them and to give them a foundation rooted in the Lord. And through that, they were able to, with no resources, because my husband always says, my family wasn't poor, they were po. You know, they couldn't even afford the rest of the word. But through that education, they were able to change the trajectory of our family's lives. And so 16 of the 18 attended college, 5 have masters, and 2 have doctorates.
Wow.
And so my mother was a living example of the power of prayer. And she had 3 mantras that she taught me. The first one was, where there's a will, there's a way. So she never let me take no for an answer. She never let me accept the fact that we had no money stop me from going after my dreams. That was the first one. The second one was when the Lord closes the door, he opens a window. And so when you face obstacles, or anytime I faced obstacles, she would always say to me, don't worry, because when the Lord closes the door, he opens a window. So, okay, so that was the second thing that drove me. And then the third was, unto whom much is given, much is required. Because she taught me that when you are blessed, you must bless others.
Yeah.
And that's...
That's rich. And speaking of which, Candace, as you know, our organization serves, many of those that come through our work are people who are looking for redemption, the stories of redemption, people who have battled, disease in the past, alcoholism, issues coming out of prison. I mean, you name it. And I want you to talk a little bit about how I wanted you to share your family story and family history, because in many ways that has shaped you, that has informed your trajectory, right? I mean, with your story, your background, your talent level, you could really be, prophet, right? But because of who you are and because of what your family represents, you have always made it purposeful to bring other people along for the ride, right? And that's essentially this online speaker series. That's what it's about. We're inviting people who we know who have made it a conscious choice to bring others along with them. Talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, so I was very blessed. When I went to Stanford, I was recruited by a woman named Ann Fudge, who became one of the highest ranking women in African-American women in corporate America, ultimately became CEO of Young and Rubicon. But in 1985, she came to Stanford to get me to come to General Mills, which is where she was at the time. And she said, I will teach you everything you need to know to be successful in life and in business. And all I ask in return is that you teach somebody else. So she was teaching me how to pay it forward before paying it forward was even in vogue. And I took that to heart. She took me under her wing. And even though she moved to another company after 18 months, we to this day are still, very, very close. She has guided my career. I've called her many a times. And the one thing she would say to me is, okay, call me, come see me, do whatever, cry, let it out. And we will talk about it. But I will put you back together, and you will put your game face back on when you go out and face the rest of the world. And we all need that person where you can just let your guard down and just kind of be unplugged and raw, and then get it together so that when you go face and deal again, remember, because you're constantly trailblazing for somebody else. So what they see is what matters. And so you've got to make sure that what they see is what you want them to remember. So when they see the next person that looks like you, that's what they're going for. And so it was wonderful for me to have that in her. And I would say the other thing that I had was my mother's innate ability to nurture. My mother had the ability to make every single person feel like they were the most important person when she was talking to them. And that was something that I picked up from her and innately used when I was guiding others. And so even today, when people call and say, hey, do you have time to take on another mentee or whatever? I will be honest. I'll say, I don't have a lot of time, but I will give you some time that you need to get started, because it is that important. If it hadn't been done for me, or as we all know, there but by the grace of God go I. And if somebody has done it for me, it is so important for me to do for someone else.
You may not even remember this, but we had an additional small connection in that there was a student that I mentored and that was under my leadership when I was a student pastor many years back, a couple of decades back. And that student actually came to work for you. And that student was Jada Vaught. I don't know if you remember that name. But yeah. but Jada, was literally went to the same high school as me. And you probably, but I remember even Jada sharing about the way you would pour into her and pour into your leadership team. She admired you so much. And so I was able to hear directly from a team member just how your story and your family of origin and your faith, the principles of your faith, and how you abided in those and how you really shared and leveraged those to pour back into others. And as I said, that's essentially what we're all about as an organization, is pouring into and bringing others along. Talk a little bit about your passion for just giving back, how, again, so many leaders who have reached your level of professionalism and your level of accomplishment, respectfully, there are many leaders who don't turn around and bring others along with them. You have consistently turned around to bring others along with you. So, just giving back in its general sense from you, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, you know what? It is so important to give back in many, many ways. I have a very dear friend named Carla Harris, and she, Carla wrote a book called Expect to Win. And in her book, she talks about the difference between mentors, advisors, and sponsors. Okay? So the mentors, talk to you about the good, the bad, and the ugly of yourself, or they tell you what you need to know about yourself to improve. An advisor is one that's going to help you understand an industry or a company or something that you're interested in, and they might be ad hoc. But a sponsor is the person that's in the room where it happens. Okay, I'm a big fan of Hamilton. They're in the room. They're telling your story. So they're the ones that tell others the good about you. Okay, so a mentor tells you what you need to know about yourself. The advisor tells you what you need to know about other things. And the sponsor tells others what they need to know about you. So I have chosen to play that role for different people in whatever way it is needed. And I think that's a critical part of giving back in the professional world. The other side that's really important to me is giving back, particularly to youth. And my passion is youth of color, showing them what they can become. Because if I get to share my story, I can always tell them, no matter where you think you are, I probably started in a worse place than you. And so one of the areas that I work most closely with is an organization called Figure Skating in Harlem. The organization is about 22 years old. I've been involved for the last 15 years. And it is a girls' empowerment program that teaches education and academics and discipline through the art of figure skating and through academic tutoring. So in 22 years of this organization, they have 100% college matriculation rate, 0% teenage pregnancy rate, and they have created some of the most amazing young women that I have ever met. And so I've been a part of that. And 3 years ago, I was in charge of replicating it for the first time outside of New York. So now we have figure skating in Detroit, as well as figure skating in New York. But the biggest thing those young women learn from the discipline of figure skating is when you fall down, you get right back up and you continue on. And so that is, as you can tell, a huge passion of mine. And I've watched some of these young women grow and graduate now. They're, many are working professionally, and now they're coming back to the organization to help the young girls.
Candace, can you, I'm going to ask you two more questions, and then I want to make sure we leave time for Q&A. The one question that I want to ask that was triggered for me. Tell me about a time, because you mentioned falling down and getting back up. Tell us about a time when your faith literally had to carry you through a season of your life, whether that's professional, personal, whatever the case, right? So of course, we're talking about this combination of work and faith. So if you have a professional work example, because, you know, many of the people we serve, and even those of us, our team, our community, right? Like, you know, our faith has had to carry us through some seasons of adversity, tribulation, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit about a season of your life where?
So I'll share both a professional and a personal one, because they both have happened. When I was working in Atlanta, one of the jobs I was working on was for Bausch and Lomb. And they had decided that they would move the division back to Rochester. And, you know, it was just kind of a quick decision. And then they were going to let us know whether or not you were being asked to go back to Rochester or not. And so not only was it bad that this was happening, how they did it was even worse. So the day that we were going to be told whether or not we had a job in Rochester, when you came to work, they mistakenly shut off the logins of the people who were not being invited to come before they told them. So you went in that morning, if you could log in, you were being asked to go. If you couldn't log in, they had already shut off your system.
Wow.
So I go into work that day, log in, can't log in. Ask some people, can you log in? Some would say yes, some would say no. And as of course, we figured out that those who couldn't log in did not have an opportunity. And I remember, because my mother was visiting me when this happened, I remember going home very upset. And that's when she threw the second mantra on me. Honey, when the Lord closes a door, he opens a window. And so for 3 months, I didn't work. And so, you know, at first it was hard. And then it was she kept saying, take the time. The Lord is letting you rest to get you ready for the next opportunity. Just rest in his presence and enjoy the peace that he is giving you, which is hard to do at first. And then I was able to embrace it. And literally, you know, about 10 weeks into this rest period, a friend of mine called and said, hey, did you see this ad in the Wall Street Journal? You should apply. It's for a strategy role. It's in Atlanta at SEBA. Why don't you call them? You know, so I sent in my information. And this is where God takes over, because that ad was fake. It was done because they had a person in mind who had a green card, and you cannot give a job to a green card unless you validate that the job that there's nobody else qualified for the job.
Wow.
So I apply for this job. The guy who's hiring calls me up and says, I want to meet you. Literally, I had, you know, this job does not exist because I've got someone earmarked for it, but I saw your background and I was so fascinated that I had to meet you. And he created another job.
Unbelievable.
He created another job. So, you know, that's a true example.
Ooh, I got goosebumps. Sorry, I got goosebumps on that.
So that's the professional example. The personal example is, so I didn't get married until I was 40. And my mother, we jokingly called Fertile Myrtle the turtle after delivering all of those children. And so when I got married, I never thought that I would have an issue conceiving. And I did. And so, like I said, I was 40. Between age 40 and 42, I went through 3 different rounds of intrauterine insemination. And I said, finally, if the third one doesn't work, that's it. We're stopping. We are stopping. And so I said, then my husband and I talked about going the adoption route. So literally in January of that year, the third one failed. I said, I can't do this anymore. A couple of weeks later, we called Bethany Christian Services. We were in Atlanta at the time,
Mm-hmm.
called Bethany Christian Services, and they lay out the plan that you have to go through to be able to start the foster to adopt or the adoption process. So we said, okay, sign us up and we'll start taking these classes that go over a 10-week period. They called us back and said, hey, we're going to try something. We're going to do, instead of over 10 weeks, we're going to do 2 Saturdays for 10 hours. Would you like to be part of that pilot class? We said, absolutely. So we go into the pilot class. After day 1, they call us back and said, okay, you won't believe this, but a sibling pair has come available. We need you to go get all of your FBI check, your fingerprints, everything that we said you do after the class, go do it right now. Mm. So by the end of the second class, they had figured out that these set of twin girls who were 3 years old at the time were coming available, and they had already had 22 families presented, and they said, no, these girls are for you. We want to present you.
Wow.
So they presented us, and we were selected, and literally 3 weeks later, we had twin girls who were 3 years old, had been diagnosed failure to thrive. They weighed 26 pounds in our home.
Wow.
And we have been, blessed with, it's been a lot of work, a tremendous amount of work. They're now 22. And that, they finished high school. They have not finished college yet, but we're still working on that. But the experience was so great that we continued to foster. We probably fostered a dozen children. And through that, we ended up getting our son, who we got at 19 months old, and he'll be 16 in October.
Wow. Man, thank you so much for sharing, Candace. Again, just who you are as a person is remarkable. We're incredibly blessed to hear your story and to have you share. For the sake of time, I'm actually going to move right into Q&A for the audience. I know that many people have some questions for you. So if you all will, please, in the chat box, please, so we don't open it up and have everyone talking over one another. If you don't mind, start posting questions in the chat box for us. That would be fantastic. Anybody have a first question that they want to ask? Otherwise, I have 1,000 more that I could ask Candace. So speak now or forever hold your peace, right? Any questions, any takers before I ask Candace? Okay, so after your grandfather was murdered and lynched, was your mom able to keep the house?
Was my grandmother able to keep the house? No, she was not. She was not able to keep the house. They then moved to Winter Park, Florida, and settled, and kind of settled there, and that's where a lot was done. But no.
Wow. So bottom line, they were aiming to get that house, and they got it.
Yeah.
And many people don't realize, Candace, unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorance around, just how the real estate, the disparity of wealth in our country from, whites to African Americans. A huge part of that is real estate centered. And so you're a real life story, because many people think that there's myths behind what happened in the real estate game. And we've heard everything you can imagine, but you are an example of a real life story where real estate was literally taken. And I'm not even sure if I shared this with my team, but, my great grandmother had over 200 acres of property in Mississippi. And now the family is down to 4 acres, from 200 plus acres to 4 acres. And they're building these high level homes all around them, around that 4 acres. So, land was literally taken away. And I wish I was old enough. I always tell my mom, man, I wish today was that time, because I would be certainly combating that. But, 196 acres gone, just like that, right? They couldn't read, they could barely write. So, they were literally signing their lives away. So a couple of other questions. So, what are some of the things that still keep you up at night? We're going to try to, well, let's try to speed round these because we got so many questions.
Okay, speed rounding. The things that keep me up at night, personal side is my daughters. They battle mental illness. They battle anxiety and depression. And I've learned that there's both nurture and nature, and you can nurture all you want, but that nature is still there and you have to combat it every day. So, that would be one. And then the second is the racial injustice. I'm just at a point now where I'm just not going to stop fighting. And, if I have to use the platform to educate others on some of this injustice, then I will.
Candace, and I'm sorry, I see a lot of questions, but I do want to ask you to speak to this because also, as accomplished as you are, right? Metallurgical engineering, which I have no idea what that even means. That was your undergraduate degree at Carnegie Mellon, one of the top schools in our world. MBA from Stanford, professionally accomplished. Many people would believe and assume that somebody like Candace Matthews would never have a racial encounter. So remember we talked about that. You went back to your reunion at Stanford, and people were shocked at the number of the African-American Stanford MBAers who had experienced racial discrimination.
Yes. We did a panel for my class. So this is my 35th reunion from Stanford. And we just did a panel where I moderated, and 3 of my African-American male classmates talked about the racial injustices that we have faced that they could never, they just thought your degree from Stanford makes you immune to that. There's no way possible. So I showed them this slide. I actually sent one about, if you could put up the slide about equality versus equity. Mm-hmm. There, I was trying to explain to them the difference between equality and equity. Equality may say you all get the same amount or they're all starting on the same line, but it's still not fair because the people on the outer have a longer way to go. But when someone looks at, we gave you the same starting line, it's all equal. Mm-hmm. Equity means you make the adjustments for the disparity that goes on. And that's why the second one, they're actually moved so that the track is fair. What people don't understand is that equity has never happened for people of color. Because in my case, when you look at, my grandfather passing away young, there's no generational wealth or anything that can be passed on. So you start behind the 8 ball trying to catch up. And when you're not giving compensation for that inequality, then it never works for you.
Yeah, that's good.
And this is one of the things that I try to get people to understand, that there is a big difference between equality or everybody getting equal, separate but equal, and what is true equity.
Equity, that is so rich and so simple, but so profound and powerful. And thank you for sharing that. That's a great illustration right there. What was, we got about 10 minutes left. What was the biggest lesson you learned as a global chief marketing officer?
Oh, how important it is when you go to other countries to ask them and learn about their culture and not to impose your culture on them. The world is beautiful, and you personally are enriched by the cultures of others. And so it's really important that you don't go try to impose what we as Americans do on others. You find what they do, embrace it, and utilize that to uplift them.
Man, yeah, and you have traveled. I would love, how many countries have you been to? God knows.
Been to 51 countries.
Yeah, I figured you'd be, I knew you had, all over the world. Yeah,
all over.
Yeah. The question of, hey, Candace, when are you writing your book?
Where's Katie? Katie, are you still on? Because I might need a help. My communications person is on. I have had so many people ask, when are you writing your book? It is time for me to stop and tell the story. It's just, as I said, I've been so blessed and so fortunate, even through adversity, that I think it's important. And for me, it's really understanding the difference between persistence and perseverance. Because persistence, you just clank at something forever and you might not make any progress. But when you persevere, you're willing to go forward and step back and go forward to ultimately get to where you need to be. And so I've kind of persevered through life with the help of the Lord. And it's time to tell it.
Hey, I've written 2. I'm working on my 3rd, so I'm happy to help you with that.
Good. I need some help.
So a quick question from Isabel. How do you overcome the intimidation of being the only minority in the room at work? And how do you avoid essentially assimilation, or what I call the colonization trap, where when you're the minority, there's a natural feeling of people wanting to colonize you versus accept you for who you are.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Okay. So I need to tell you one thing. You happen to be seeing me in the week that my braider makes me keep my hair out. Because outside of this, my hair would be in braids. I wear braids, and I wear braids purposefully because it sends a message that who I am, and my hair being a part of who I am, that I can wear it in a style that is natural to me and be accepted in the boardroom. And so normally my hair is in braids, and it will be back in braids on Saturday. But I say that to say, when you get in those rooms and you're the one and only, you have to help people understand that you are unique and should be valued for that uniqueness and not for how well you blend in. And so I take it, another thing that my mom used to say, if they knew better, they'd do better. So I take the approach that I will educate people. Instead of immediately getting upset for what is said, I assume no malintent and educate. And so that's the approach that I've taken. In many of the rooms where I'm the only one, I don't assimilate. If we like the same things, that's wonderful. If not, I will make sure that I put on the table the things that are important to me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So a quick, maybe we could get 3 more in, but for sure, I think we can get 2 in. You spoke about, let's see, did I skip one? I hope I didn't. I'm so sorry if I did. I think let me go back. What are some solutions around racial inequality? Do you have any just quick knee-jerk reactions to that question?
One of the things I think that we have to understand is that racial inequality will not change until every single person gets involved. This is not something for people of color to solve. This is something for everyone to solve. So, I often tell people, if you need help, just call, where the C stands for challenge inequity or injustice every time you see it. You just have to, actively listen to other people to learn their perspectives, then take time to learn about someone's experience that's different than yours, because only then can you understand what it's like to be in their shoes. And the last L is to love and value every life. And yes, Black lives do matter.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And, I want to piggyback that because there's always the conversation around, well, all lives matter. And we absolutely 1,000,000% believe that all lives matter. I also want to emphasize for those who may be watching this and recording that, and I want to be careful in saying this, Candace, you may help me clean this up, that the Black Lives Matter movement, I'll be candid and say, I don't agree with a lot of the ways that movement is taking place. I don't. So I don't want people to box in all Black people based upon what they're seeing in media and propaganda. All Black people don't represent the way the media is portraying Black Lives Matter,
Mhm.
right? And I want to emphasize that we believe Black Lives Matter, but we don't have the exact same stance that the propaganda and media is actually
Right.
portraying, because it's a negative perspective.
Exactly. And, what I like to say is, if I were a fireman,
There you go.
every house would matter.
I would, yes,
But
I was going to go
I
there.
would go to the house that's on fire.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that they aren't there to protect every house,
Mm-hmm.
but they're going to the house that's on fire.
Absolutely.
Right now, our lives, or our sons' lives, are on fire.
Absolutely.
And that's why it is said, for me, it's said in the way it had said. When I say Black Lives Matter, I say you need to pay attention to what is happening to the Black lives. It doesn't mean anybody else's life is not important.
Absolutely. Thank you for emphasizing that. And I love that illustration. I've heard that a number of times before as well. What's your favorite place? Your favorite place is a last question. Your favorite place to, I guess that's favorite place to vacation, I'm guessing. Oh, maybe out of all those countries that you visited.
Oh, okay. My favorite is Thailand. And the reason, there's something very wonderful and soothing about Southeast Asia, and particularly Thailand. When they greet you, they say, "Sawatdee ka." And in doing that, there's this calm that comes over you, just from how they welcome you, And so, yeah, I would say Thailand. But I would say I have a new favorite place, and it's my back deck. After traveling so much, I was traveling over 50% of the time, coronavirus let me stay home and enjoy my home.
Well, Candace, it's been such an honor. Do you have any closing thoughts or comments that you want to share? I mean, wow, this Zoom chat box has blown up. We hadn't had this thing blow up like it is with you. You are, I mean, the comments are flying in. So again, you have just really made a tremendous mark on our audience today. And even for those who haven't tuned in, I know many of our board members, for example, they usually watch this after the fact because they're running. They're leaders at the level you're at. And so many of them are running and gunning, but they tune in. So thank you for sharing your time. Any closing comments as we move to wrap up today?
I'm going to leave you with my mother's 3 things. Where there's a will, there's a way. When the Lord closes the door, he opens a window. And unto whom much is given, much is required. I thank you for the opportunity. As I said, I've been abundantly blessed, and I've hoped through this that I've been able to bless your life in some way.
Oh man, you have been a tremendous blessing. Well, everyone, I want to just remind you of our mission at WorkFaith. We provide training and coaching for anyone desiring long-term employment. And Candace, we use this platform to really talk, to bring people on like yourself who have managed to overcome adversity and who have leveraged their faith in the marketplace. And so we're tremendously grateful that you were able to share your story. And again, thank you for the story around your family and your comments as you were talking about the racial inequality and all of that, because frankly, many of those we serve on our platform, they represent that demographic. Many of those coming out of prison, they represent the demographic that you were speaking of. And so again, we're so grateful for you. This will be posted on our website in perpetuity. We're going to continue to share it with our audience. We usually send an e-blast out to our audience after the fact, so many more people will watch this. And don't be shocked if people reach out to you to try to get you to speak. So, well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to hosting you again next month. Next month, I have another great friend of mine, Mr. Kimmons Wilson. Kim is actually from the family that founded Holiday Inn. So Kim is the 3rd generation heir to the throne, if you will. His grandfather literally created and founded Holiday Inn and changed the entire hotel industry. One of my very best friends. I worked an internship and he was training me to take his job as he was moving on to Cornell for his MBA so many years back. So again, Candace, as you see, we have a great lineup of speakers, and we like to bless our audience. So thank you all, and have an amazing day, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next month. Same bat time, same bat channel as it goes. All right. You all have a great one.